In this episode, we will now install Concrete5 locally so we can work with it, but then also convert our static website into a Concrete5 theme. First of all, in order to use Concrete5 and also work with it locally, you need XAMPP or any other kind of local environment developable tools to have a local server running. Because Concrete5 is based on PHP, so I think XAMPP should be totally fine. You can also go with Laragon if you have any kind of preferences. That's totally up to you. And also what you need to have is some basic knowledge of PHP because Concrete5 is a content management system that you want to use as a backend. And since PHP is the backend language for this content management system, you simply need to understand some basic knowledge here. So if you don't know PHP yet, then I would really recommend you to get or to watch some other YouTube tutorials about PHP. But that said, let's get started. So XAMPP for me is running my Apache and my SQL server. Then I just go ahead to concrete5.org. I download the latest installation, which I already did here. And then I extract it inside my folder that, that I want to use for my ugly blog and extract all of it. While the extraction process is going on, I already created a database for my Concrete5. So I'm going to call it ugly blog. And usually I want to go with UTF-8 Unicode CI. Create it. That one is now ready, so I can close this one. And Concrete5 has been extracted to my folder. I'm just going to move it a folder above, so I'm not have to link to all these Concrete5 subfolders. And now that should already be enough, because now in my XAMPP directory, if I visit the ugly blog, I should be presented with the Concrete5 installation screen. And here it is. So now I can just say English. All checks have passed. Nice. And the name is going to be ugly blog. Administrator email, I'm just going to use some info at email. All my passwords will be hello123. Probably I want to go with an empty site, because full site ships you already with many pages, but we don't want to work with all the pages. If you now clicked or created a full site, that's no issue at all, because you still can delete all the pages. I mean, those are just some demo pages that you can see what Concrete can do and what it is shipped with. And, and the server that is for the database, so that one is localhost. I'm running MySQL here, so MySQL username is going to be root. On the live server, of course, you never want to use root user. You want to create a very specific user just for this database, the ugly blog that I created. And since my root doesn't have a password, I don't have to give anything here. Privacy policy, yes. And I should then be good to go to install Concrete5. This is something I get for local installation, but this is the warning I can ignore, because this is like this warning, I never receive it on a live server. And now I hit the install button, and in the meantime, while Concrete is installing, I can open a new window to work with Concrete5 then, and that should be this folder. Perfect. So this folder is now the Concrete5 installation. And while Concrete5 is then installing, I'm just quickly going through all the files that you can see here. So application and Concrete, those are the two files you're mostly working with. Or actually just application, because Concrete, this folder and all the files of it, those are the default core files that Concrete has to offer. But sometimes you want to do changes to Concrete5, sometimes you want to overwrite things. And that is where the application folder comes in. So that is where the application folder comes in. Because if you want to overwrite something, you simply do it inside the application folder, and then Concrete will directly know when you copy one structure and maybe some files that it should take this one above the ones inside Concrete. So therefore, later on when we work with blocks, we then add those inside here. If you want to overwrite a block, let's say you have a core navigation. The navigation. This is the block you use for navigation. So if we want to overwrite some of these structures, maybe there needs to be some special class inside the ally. Maybe there needs to be something else special in the A target. We can simply copy this folder autonav and put it up here inside this blocks folder and then do the changes to it. So we're not actually doing the changes to the core files, but we're just updating it with something additionally. And Concrete is still installing. Yes, good. So those are for those two folders, and the packages folder, that is where you install your extensions. So if you have an extension that you found online, you either purchase it or download it, then you import it inside the packages folder here, and then you can install it inside Concrete, the Concrete dashboard. And still installing. So I'm just gonna wait with you guys until it's done with installing, and then we're going through the theme that we're gonna use for this setup. And now Concrete gave us the message that it has successfully installed. We can now edit the page, and to the demo page I showed you in the first episode, we can now see that this page looks completely different because there is no content, and if I'm not wrong, there's also no theme installed. So what is it that we're now going to do? We will now have a look at our theme that we created here. I will just open it in an Explorer, and then I will simply copy paste the whole content of it, and then inside our Concrete5 installation I will go inside applications, themes. I will create a new subfolder, probably the name of the theme that we want to use. I call it ugly block. And then I will paste all the stuff in there. Okay, so I probably have to reveal this in Explorer. And now all the files are in there. And from here on, I then want to create one more additional file called description.txt. And this is the description that Concrete will display inside the page and themes here. Because right now, when we open the page and themes here, we can see that there is a theme available to install, because Concrete figured that there is one folder inside themes here, so there is a theme that it can install, but it doesn't have a title or name, and that is where we use the description.txt. So I give it a title of ugly block theme, and then some description. So the first line is the title, the second line is the description. The custom theme for the ugly block. I save it, and now I refresh the page, and I can see that we have the description now here. Before I though hit the install button, I just want to edit the file extensions of these files. So single.html should be changed into single.php, and the same goes for default. All good. So why I'm not doing the default dash about.html, that is just something from my project specific. Because now I will just simply go through my files with you of the static website that created. So if once again we have a look at my design here, I can see that the layout of this website is a full width template, and the same goes for the about page. However, though, for my blog page, that's a little bit different, because we can see that if I'm just taking our screenshot here, so it's maybe better for you also to see, have a look, that this page is actually divided in three layouts of three components, if you could say it like that. Because we have the title here. The title takes like the full width, or the first full width space that is available. Just afterwards there, we have then another block here, or not even block, but a component here. And then we have the widget component here. So that is something that you then have to do while creating or designing the templates, that this is for me then a single page, whereas this is for me a single page, whereas this is then a full width page, or the default page, that then can take up 100% of the width. But if I add now a content inside here in this left side of the single page, then it is only allowed to take up the width that I give here within the container that I define. So my default page and the about page, they use the same default, but I simply created another page based on the default page with some content for the about page, so I can have a look how it looks for the about page. So actually at the end of the day, I don't need this page. It is just to see if it also looks good for the about page. And then the single page that I have here, I have then some special containers or wrapper. So in the top, I have just a normal section. And then afterwards, I have then another container that then splits the section afterwards into two. So once it is the left side, and then on the other hand, it is the right side. And yeah, from there on, we will then get going on. So now, after I have put all my files in here and then renamed these files to PHP, I'm just going to delete this one to prevent some confusions. I can now go inside the dashboard and hit the install button. Now Concrete5 will install the theme, and we can see that it has two kind of templates. The default, which is this one, and then the single page template, which is the one I want to use for blogs, which has then the whole width here, and then the content afterwards is split in two for the content and for the widgets on the right side. So I will just press OK. The theme is successfully installed, and then I want to activate the theme, so I go back to Pages and Themes, click on Activate, apply this theme for the whole website, yes. And now if we go to the home page, we can see that we have now all the contents of our static websites, but the styling is missing, and there's much more that we have to do. So what you can do then is, when you go on Google, or I will probably share this link with you in the comments, Concrete5 theme development. So this is a guide from Concrete5 developers, who then explain the step-by-steps that you have to do to convert a normal static website into a Concrete5 theme. but it is not complete, so I will show you the complete version of it. So let's then get started with converting it into a Concrete5 theme. First of all, we can see that the single and the default page, they both have the same header. And that is maybe something we want to put in its very own component, so we don't have to redo that on every page. For this case, I'm going to create a new folder called elements. And in that folder, I'm going to create two new files, header.php and footer.php. Then I'm just going over to the default, and everything that is with the header included here, I just copy that and remove it and put it inside the header file here. The same goes for the footer. Everything that is the footer, I'll just copy it and put it inside the footer. But now, since we removed it from the default PHP, we also have to include it back again. And in order to include it, that is where we then have to write some PHP code. PHP. And there we then write this inc for include, that is a Concrete5 built-in function, and then we can say elements slash header.php. And the same thing we do for the footer. So now the footer and the header elements are back inside the default template. For Concrete5, there is one code snippet that you should always put in the beginning of such a template and in whatever file you're going to create, just for security reasons. So if somebody tries to access this file, some non-concrete related purpose, then Concrete will throw errors. And this is also a code snippet that should be inside the header. And inside the footer. So now after we did that, we then also have to include the header required and the footer required from the load element. What these two do is, when we have a look at our Concrete website, we can see that the navigation dashboard here in the top of Concrete5 is missing. The one on the right is missing and the one on the left is missing. And these are these come by using that loader element. So I'm just going ahead there and I copy paste this one, and that has to go directly inside the head tag. So I'm just putting it above my style sheet and I save it, and the footer, and here it says just before the closing body tag. So here's the body tag. So that one works. Now, since Concrete5 is taking over the handling of all my files, this directory to link style sheets and scripts is not working anymore. What we then have to do is we have to use a Concrete5 method that then outputs the whole theme path of our file, and from there on then we can finally use then all these elements. So what this method does is it outputs to the direction of this ugly block folder, and then inside that ugly block folder, so the direction that I get out of here, I go inside the scripts and again on my main.js. So that one should work again. The same goes also for my CSS styles. So I could do it like this, but that means that I'm currently linking to my CSS file, but not less. So in order to use the less files and let Concrete5 handle the pre-processing, There is then some other thing that I can use, some other method that I can use, and that one is called get style sheet. And then I just simply specify what is my less file that I want to compile. And that one is the primary.less. And from there on, I can now remove the whole style here. And now Concrete5 knows that it should compile this file into its CSS file so it can use it on the website. One requirement though for this method to work is that the less file or the style sheet file has to be inside the folder CSS inside the theme. So that is why this folder is called CSS on not styles. So it's looking now for the primary less file inside this folder, and the primary.css is a file we can delete from now on because we don't need it. Then what we also need is, you probably remember, for Concrete5 to know where to wrap all the elements like the dashboard and all that stuff around the page. We talked about using this class as a wrapper or container, the CCM page. But this is only during the static website development that we should use this one, because afterwards Concrete5 will use like a lot more classes and elements that it wants to wrap around here, and therefore we can then, or we have to use this cGetPageWrapper class and instead or edit or use it as a class actually here. I mean, at the end of the day, Concrete5 will still output CCM page, but it's not only CCM page that it outputs also a lot of other stuff. And that is why this body content replacement is like a really nice thing to have. So now, if I'm not wrong, I think our whole Concrete theme should work. So if we save everything and we refresh the page, then we should see something like this without the image though, because we haven't linked to the image yet. And it does. As we can see, we have all the elements. And now in the next video, we will then have a look at how we now actually can customize the page elements here and use the drag and drop builder to create blocks. So we can just drag and drop them inside the page, but also how to specify in our files, or where to specify in our files where we actually can drag and drop elements. So that is then for the third episode.